All right, folks, what's going on, beautiful people? So this is going to be part 2 of proper e-collar work, the power of proper e-collar work, okay? Yesterday was a long video. This won't be as long, all right? And for anyone who sat through a whole hour of that, God bless you, because there's no way I could sit there and listen to that for an hour. A couple things real quick about yesterday that I think I started to talk about and didn't finish. I listened to a little of the video, and I started talking about the importance of making good contact and keeping the collar snug enough. But I never went and finished. I got caught up on something else. The reason why the collar has to be tight enough and making good contact is when you're checking for the dog's level and you're starting at 0 and going up 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, right? Whatever collar you're using. If the collar is too loose and it's not making consistent contact on the neck, you can keep going up and up and up, and you're not getting anything because it's not making contact. And then all of a sudden, as you're going up, the collar moves and makes contact, and you can light the dog up because now all of a sudden the collar is way much higher than it should be. One of the biggest mistakes everyone makes is the collar is on way too loose and it's not making contact. And then the dog pays the price for it. So you have to understand why. If you keep it on too loose, you're going to wind up hitting the dog on higher levels than necessary and messing the dog up. You don't want to do that. The other thing is, I'm not sure if I touched on it. Another big mistake so many people make. Do not get rid of the leash too soon. We want to cheat to help the dog succeed. We don't want to give the dog the opportunity to blow us off and then try to rely on the e-collar when the dog's not ready. For instance, people get a false sense of security because when the dog is on leash around the house and you're doing the conditioning phase, or even if you're in the intermittent phase, everything's going really well. The dog is responding exactly how you want. So the people get rid of the leash too quick. Now the dog has some freedom before it's ready, and you recall the dog and the dog blows you off, and what do? People start going up to high levels on the e-collar. You're not going to have the kind of success you're looking for if you do that. Take your time. This is a process. It takes a while, okay? You don't want to give the dog an opportunity to blow you off. At least for me, I'm not using the e-collar to implement any kind of punishment or corrections until the dog is fully literate with it. There's always exceptions, okay? And I've shown a couple of times where I've completely broken my own rules, but there was always a reason for it. But it's rare, very, very rare, guys. You, as the average dog owner, you do not want to be put in that situation. Keep the leash on the dog, okay? So today what I want to talk about is something that people don't like to talk about for the most part. I want to talk about corrections and punishment using the e-collar. But I also want to talk about using the e-collar for teaching the out, a command that so many people struggle with, okay? I want to talk about the power of negative reinforcement, because I think a lot of people still don't understand just how powerful negative reinforcement can be, especially when used in conjunction with positive reinforcement. But also, a lot of people just assume it's something bad because it has the word negative in it. So I want to go over those things, corrections and punishment, and teaching the out, right? These things come up all the time, and it's always an issue. So for me, we talked about yesterday conditioning the dog to the e-collar, spending a few days teaching the language of the e-collar, teaching the dog what that stimulation means. Then we talked about where the dog really learns in that intermittent phase, okay? Several of you I saw asked, how do you stop the dog from being collar wise? Like, my dog does great when the e-collar is on, but as soon as it's off, he blows me off. That's a flaw in your training, if that's the issue. That's why we put so much time and effort into that intermittent phase. That's why we don't put the e-collar on the dog, start training, and then take it off when we're done. All those little things I mentioned and have talked about and shown many, many times in all the other videos and in the book, that's why, guys. we're doing this. The main goal, the way I do things, is that in the long run, the dog listens to the verbal command whether there's an e-collar on or not. So all these little things matter. But I talk to people daily that say, I've done everything exactly like you have, but this is where I'm having a hard time. And then they send videos, and I say, that's nothing what I'm doing. So people interpret things a little differently at times, and they take shortcuts, and they leave out the little things. The little things are where the big results come from, okay? Now, let's talk about corrections and punishment. And I'm using two different terms for two different things, okay? I'm going to tell you how I look at corrections and how I look at punishment. There's a difference to me in my book. To others, there won't be. That's okay. I'm just telling you, I see it differently. I've said it earlier. 99.9% of the time, I am not going to use the e-collar to correct or punish a dog until it's fully literate and understands the training. Okay, so I'm not going to give a dog an opportunity off leash to blow me off. I'm going to make sure that dog's ready to be off leash before I ever go there. All right. One of the things I do in training when we're in a secure area, you guys see it. I teach every dog I work with, every single dog, I teach every dog a non-verbal recall, a tactile recall, right? I teach the dog that if it's away from me, and it feels a tap tap and there's no command attached to it, the default command, the default response is to turn and come to me. The recall is the default response when there's a tap tap with no command attached to it. Every dog learns that, okay? Once I implement that at my home in a secured fenced-in area, and the dog is busy and has its nose in the ground or it's playing with my dogs, and I tap and the dog comes to me, I know now that the dog is ready to be off leash in real world distractions. He understands the language, okay? Most dogs that come here stay for about a month on average, some a little longer. Many of those dogs won't see a correction with the e-collar when they're here. It's all about teaching and learning while they're here. There's always exceptions, okay? So let's talk how I implement corrections and how I implement punishment. What would I use the e-collar for to correct things? What would I use an e-collar to punish things? A lot of people will say it's the same thing. I get it. To me, I'm going to explain a little bit of a difference, okay? Let's say now the dog is truly trained, understands it, and I'm doing distance work. I'm doing positions with my dog at a distance. And from 150 feet away, I'm just telling my dog, down, sit, stand, sit, down, stand, down. All the basics, right? At a distance. No e-collar or e-collar, doesn't matter. I'm just doing distance work. Let's say I have that dog in a down, and I tell that dog to stand, and it doesn't stand immediately. That's where I'm going to follow up with a correction. Not going to say nothing. I'm not going to repeat the command. I'm just going to tap one time. That dog, when it's trained properly, will always revert to the last command given. So in other words, if it's down and I say stand and they don't stand and I follow with a tap, I correct the non-compliance, the dog will get up into a stand every time. Okay? So that's what I mean by correction. All right? Same thing, the dog is far away from me and I call it, Mango, come. She doesn't come immediately. I follow up with the tap on the e-collar. The level, often with my dogs and a lot of dogs that come here, is not going to be any different than the working level that we use during the training. That's what I mean by correction. It's usually going to be the same level. It's not going to change. We're just going to reinforce what the dog knows but didn't do. I've showed you guys a couple examples over the years. How you could also use the e-collar to guide the dog when they truly know it. I did a video with Luca a few years back where I showed you guys from scratch what you can do with the tool when the dog truly understands it, right? what I did was, I told you, I took him to a little green electrical box out in my front yard, which I don't think he had ever been on up until that point. Luca knows the place command well. He can get on anything. He gets it. But what I explained to people was, I'm going to start next to it, and I'm going to keep on moving back. And I said, eventually, once we get to a certain distance, the confusion will set in. And all of a sudden, he's going to act like he don't know where to go. He's going to be spinning around and looking for something. That's what I told people was going to happen. And I said, at the moment he does that, as a matter of fact, I think it's the first video I ever did with the sound box, when eCollar Technology sent me the sound box, so people were able to hear it. And I said, when he gets confused and he's looking all over, that's where I will start implementing the tap, tap, tap. I'm not correcting anything. I'm not punishing anything. I'm tapping the e-collar whenever he is pointed in the wrong direction, right? And the second he points in the right direction, the e-collar will stop and he will go. I told people before we did that, that's what would happen. And that's exactly what happened. We got to a certain distance. He was going, free dog, place, free dog, place, free dog. And I think if I remember correctly, even once I got to a certain point, I said, I think this is where he'll start being confused, right? I also had a tug in my back pocket that he didn't know was there. So when we got to that certain distance, I said, Luca, place, and he started going, and the confusion set in. He started spinning around looking. When he did that, I started tap, tap, tap. But the second his body pointed the right direction, I stopped, and he took off. And he ran down there. He jumped up on the place thing. The second he got up there, I said yes, and I pulled out the tug. Big surprise reward. He came flying in and nailed it, okay? So that blew people away because a lot of people never understood just how easy it is to steer a dog in and provide clear communication when the dog's away from you, when the dog truly understands the stimulation. So now what I did the very next day, I go out to repeat that exact video, but with no e-collar, just to show all these people that say the dog becomes reliant on the tool. My dogs rarely have e-collars on, guys. Rarely have e-collars on. So I took it out to do the same video, no e-collar, except this time I went further than we did at that moment. One time we go further, Luca place, he goes flying all the way down there like he's been doing it forever, jumps up there. I say yes, I reward with the tug, right? We taught the dog so much in that one session with those tactile communication taps from the e-collar. But yet you still have a ton of people on the balance side of training that don't understand what can be done with the tool when you know what you're doing. Very, very powerful stuff, okay? Now, I used that to steer at him. Let's go to another video with Mango. I showed you guys this, and I showed you the first time, so people benefit from it. When I get a puppy, we'll use Mango here, I don't give her free rein with my other dogs. Okay, I want that dog bonding with me, not the other dogs. Little by little, I start giving her that freedom. But she could be a real son of a gun with other dogs, especially my dogs, right? So she wants to just play and bite, and she's very rough. She's a bully, big time. And so I know that if I take her out to play ball, if I'm throwing a ball for Luca and Buddy, and I allow Mango in, I don't know, maybe she was 7 months old here, I can't remember exactly. She was young. When she don't get the ball, whoever has the ball, she's going to chase them, and out of frustration, she's going to nail them. She's going to bite them. And I told people this. This is what she's going to do. And I said, I'm going to fix this right here. Now, this is where punishment comes in. Okay? Again, Mango was completely literate to the e-collar. Completely literate. She understands it. So there won't be no confusion. There won't be no down in the dumps. So we go out. I tell people this. Again, the video is on YouTube for you guys to watch. I throw the ball. I can't remember if Buddy got it or Luca got it. I don't remember, and I don't remember which dog she went after. But on the way back, I put the e-collar up a little higher because this is going to be punishment. This is going to be a behavior. I'm not going to be a nag. I want to stop it right now. Okay? The second she went in for the bite on my other dog, I tapped her one time. Boop! Stopped her in her tracks. I don't remember what the number was, but it was high enough that it was unpleasant and she wasn't going to do it again. And I showed that. You guys saw it on video. I keep repeating that because it's important to tell people that. This isn't stuff we just talk about. I've shown it for all the naysayers out there about the tool on both sides of the aisle, right? The Democrats and the Republicans. So now, again, to go against what people say, that now you become reliant on the e-collar and the dog doesn't perform without it. We go out, we do the same exact video, no e-collar on Mango, nothing. We do the same scenario. We throw the ball, the other dogs get the ball. I think we might have done it in the same video. I might have taken I don't know. I don't remember exactly. It was a while ago. She never bit one of them again. Okay? She wasn't sad. She wasn't depressed. She wasn't confused. She didn't want to kill herself. She wasn't down in the dumps. She didn't write in her diary that night how much her life sucks, how much her dad is such an asshole and doesn't care about her. Didn't think twice about it. We made it very clear to her, you can't do that behavior, okay? So to this day, there's still a lot of people out there that think I don't punish dogs or I don't use the e-collar for corrections. That's not true. Am I very light-handed? Absolutely. I'm very conservative when it comes to punishment because I normally don't have to be. I normally don't have to use a lot. I make sure the training is clear and I take my time, okay? Those are a couple of examples. Usually, if I'm within range of the dog or the dog's on a leash, I want the correction coming from me, not the e-collar. I prefer it coming from the leash. I prefer it coming from my body. I prefer that it comes directly from me with the dog. You can't do that when the dog is away from you. Being able to communicate with your dog, whether it's for good or for bad, is an extremely powerful tool. And there's only one tool on this planet that can do that, and that's the e-collar. That's it. If my clients were never going to take their dogs off leash, if I were never going to take my dogs off leash, I wouldn't use e-collars. I'd have no purpose for them, okay? So the main purpose for me is to provide that off-leash freedom for my dogs and my clients' dogs. Can I make all the obedience better, faster, sharper? Absolutely, because I know what I'm doing. Can I stop unwanted behaviors of all sorts? Absolutely. But the one thing that I request from people, well, I have no right to request anything. I'll just tell you what I do. Let's say you have a dog that digs or gets in your garbage or jumps on your counters. These are the kind of behaviors that I'm going to punish. I'm going to punish them harshly, and I don't want it associated with me. This is where I want to create those suspicious behaviors. But even then, I'm not putting an e-collar on a dog. Someone else asked a question about a problem they were having with a client, and they were going this week or something, and they were going to put an e-collar on the dog to fix counter surfing. Doesn't work that way. Not for me. I'm still going to take my time and go through all the training properly first, okay? What I would prefer in that case is the dog is not given the opportunity to do that. If the dog does that, then it's the people's fault. Then the dog should not be off leash when it's with you, and when you're not there should be crated. That dog is telling you it's not ready to have the freedom when you're not there. And people do that way too soon and give young dogs too much freedom, and then you're only training the dog to do wrong, and you're going to spend the rest of the dog's life fixing bad behaviors, okay? So for any of those behaviors, the digging, the counter surfing, getting in garbages, all that stuff, chasing cars, whatever it is, I'm still not going to slap an e-collar on a dog and correct that. I'm going to take a few weeks and train the dog properly, and then I will set the dog up, okay? I will set the dog up. If it goes outside and digs outside and you don't want that happening, I'm going to get to a place where I can watch the dog. I'm not going to say anything. It's not going to be associated with me. I am going to punish that dog harshly with the e-collar, and you'll only have to do it once if you do it right, okay? Am I going to put the e-collar on 100 and hold the button down? No. No, that is just not necessary. Am I going to make sure it's harsh enough for that dog? It's going to be quick. It's going to be very quick, but it's going to be firm enough to where that dog says, that sucks. I'm not digging in there anymore. I'm not jumping on the counter anymore. I ain't touching that freaking garbage anymore. Think about how much better people's lives would be with their dogs if they understood how to fix these behaviors without all the bullshit attached and taking 6 months to do so. The average person don't have 6 months to fix their dog's training problems, a year to fix their dog's training. They need them fixed in a realistic amount of time, in a realistic way that they can follow through. It's that simple. That's what people pay us for, to get something done. Not for a lesson and not to learn how to be a dog trainer. Of course, we want to teach them as much as we can, but we also have to produce something for them worth paying for. Okay? So that's the difference between corrections and punishment for me. No matter what, I still want the dog to be literate and understand what just happened and not have any negative blowback. There was a time where I think I said before, like 70% of the dogs that came here had all been through bad e-collar training before. All of them. That's what I used to do a lot of. They would all change when I start from scratch and teach the process the correct way. Very few of them were difficult to change and get out of that bad situation that they had been put in before, okay? So, yes, I use the e-collar to correct dogs. I use the e-collar to punish dogs. Do I have to do it often? Not at all. Not at all. There's things that, so many behaviors, that by stopping them with the proper e-collar work, save the dog's life. Save the dog's life. Of course, when incorporated in an overall good training program, and especially how to live with your dog properly. It's all one big piece, guys. It's a big piece. The totality of everything you do is where the results come from, good and bad. So if you're missing parts, you're not going to get the optimum results. Let's just call it what it is, okay? The proper use of tools is a very important part of that overall totality training program. Why leave it out? That's what provides a lot of benefit to these everyday dog owners. And that's who we got to start focusing on. That's who we need to win over and teach and keep these dogs alive, the everyday dog owners. Now, let's talk about teaching the out, okay? This is something so many people struggle with. You guys have seen my dogs out for years. Every dog I've ever had, no matter how highly, they out. If I'm going to teach the dog to bite, I'm going to teach the dog to out, right? My clients' dogs also. The working dogs that come here, you've seen some big, strong dogs. They all out without conflict. No issues, no problems, right? Where I see a lot of people going wrong is they try to get the dog out to out. They create a lot of conflict, and then they're using the e-collar to punish the non-compliance of the dog outing what it has. That was being done 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It didn't produce the best results then, and it doesn't produce the best results now, okay? I've never taught any of my dogs how to out with an e-collar. It's never been part of the process, okay? I do several different things. With Luca, at 9 weeks old, that was a dog that did not want to let anything go. He was a savage from day one. With him, I used a lot of patience. I waited out that first out, and it probably took me a half hour of him holding on to a tug as tight as could be, me asking him to out, and just waited him out. I mean, and it took forever. And when he did, I marked it, I gave it right back to him. And then the next time, it took a long time, but not as long. And then the next time, a little shorter, he learned to out very quick. All right? Very, very quickly. It was never an issue. With Mango, I used food in the beginning to teach the out. I used a little leash collar with my fingers also. I did multiple things, but food was a big way of teaching her the out. Now, people say you can't use food with a working dog. Well, you can when they're puppies. Absolutely. And some of the best in the world do so. And that's why I started trying it, and it works wonderfully. I think I have videos of, a lot of videos of teaching the out to Mango, okay, if I'm not mistaken. But I use several methods when I teach anything. Yesterday I mentioned a few books from other trainers, Pat Nolan, Mark Goldberg, Monks of New Skeet, great books. Today I'm going to tell you Ivan Balabanov has a fantastic video on teaching the out. Dave Krohn has a fantastic paid subscription that's dirt cheap, where he did a video, I think 3 videos on the e-collar stuff recently too. Well worth it, guys. Okay, well worth it. So latch on to their stuff. Don't just take what I'm saying. Listen to others. All right? Ivan has a ton of great videos out. Dave has a ton of great videos out. Okay? Tobias Olenek has a ton of great videos out. He also has a channel. These are people that y'all should be watching and learning from. Don't just take my word from it. Watch their stuff. So now let's talk about using the e-collar and negative reinforcement for a dog that's already trained on the e-collar to help with the out. I've done some videos on that. I think the last one I did was with Patton, the Black German Shepherd, okay? And I did step by step, and I show everyone what you do. Here's the thing. Negative reinforcement, especially with the e-collar, is extremely powerful, guys. Extremely powerful. So now, for the people who don't understand, what does that mean? What does negative reinforcement mean? It just means you're removing something, right? So if we're using a leash to provide negative reinforcement, let's say the dog is at the end of the leash, and we start putting a little pressure, pulling on the leash for the dog to come toward us. The second he moves to come our way and that leash gets a little loose, we remove all pressure. That's negative reinforcement. And then we follow up with something good for the dog. They learn very, very quickly like that. We teach the dog negative reinforcement from the day we start conditioning to the e-collar, right? That marker word signals that the reward is coming. That's what the marker word does. That's the signal that you did exactly what you were supposed to. Here comes the reward. When we're conditioning the dog in the beginning, that e-collar coming on signals that the command is coming. Okay? E-collar comes on, the command comes. The second the dog performs a command that it knows very well, the e-collar goes away. That's the negative reinforcement. And then we provide a reward. Extremely powerful when the dog's learning. So now, let's say the dog's been trained on the e-collar. It's literate. It understands it. You're in the intermittent phase. So the dog has a very good education on how to turn away the pressure from the e-collar, right? Let's say we have a nice, strong working dog. You've seen some of them here. That's never outed before. The first thing I'll normally do is I'll use other ways of teaching the dog to out. I'll use some leash pressure. I'll use some pressure on the collar with my hand under the collar. I'll wait the dog out a little bit. I still use a lot of different things. Usually adult dogs won't trade something for food, but I still use a little bit of everything, right? But then once the dog has an understanding, so let's say I'm using the leash. I put leash pressure on the dog. I ask the dog to out, and I keep putting pressure until he does. The leash pressure goes away. That's negative reinforcement. I may give him the bite again or reward him with something else. It's the same thing with the e-collar, except a lot easier, and there's no conflict. Okay? So, let's say I have a nice, strong German Shepherd here, right? And you saw Patton in the videos. The dog doesn't like to out, right? Playing tug, or we got a ball, or whatever. E-collar comes on. I say out, and I'm not blasting the dog. You know, usually it's going to be on the dog's regular working level, sometimes a little bit higher. Whatever that dog requires, that's the correct area. That's how much pressure we're putting on the dog. Okay, some dogs you're going to have to put more pressure. Some dogs you're going to have to put less pressure. That you have to learn. That dog in front of you. E-collar comes on. He's already trained. Knows how to turn off the stimulation from the e-collar. We ask the dog to out. The dog spits out the object. The e-collar goes away. Yes, we follow up with another bite on the tug, or we throw the ball. It is that simple and that basic. And again, I have a few videos out there where you guys can watch that. That simple. But most, especially in the, say, in the police canine world, there's a lot of conflict for the out, and then they're blasting the dog with the e-collar. And you know what happens, guys, when you take a dog that hasn't been trained the way we do it? When you take a strong, driven dog and you're only using it to correct or punish the dog, a lot of those dogs will just bite down harder. It's a muscle reaction, right? Natural reaction. They got it real tight, and high level stimulation comes on, and they're shaking, and their necks go, and they're biting harder. You're creating a ton of conflict, and you're totally desensitizing the dog to the neck area. Completely, nothing's going to get that dog to out. No kind of correction on the neck is going to do anything except create a lot of conflict. So even with the strongest working dogs, if you take your time to train the dog from scratch, give it a few weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever. Some even 2 weeks if you know what you're doing. If the dog is literate to the e-collar, when you provide that negative reinforcement first, e-collar comes on, out command, dog spits it out, e-collar goes away, the dog gets another bite or chase the ball, whatever it is. This day and age, I have no idea why so many are struggling so much with the out. It's not difficult, guys. It's not difficult. It's not a hard thing to teach. And I've shown it over and over and over. Every dog that comes here outs, no matter how much they want when they get here. I'm not jacking these dogs up. I'm not putting e-collars on these dogs and punishing them for not. That doesn't happen. You don't have to. Doesn't have to. But again, Go By Ivan stuff has a great video on the out. Chase and Catch is a great video. All his videos are great. Dave Krohn has phenomenal stuff out there. Tobias Olenek might teach things a little different than them. Take all three. Look at all their stuff. Learn. Soak in the knowledge. Pay a few dollars. It's your education. It's a very important education. I'm not trying to sell you on this stuff. I have nothing to sell for it, right? I have one product I sell, a book that's for $10. That's all I have. Can't sell you anything else. All this is free. But I do recommend a lot of good people out there that maybe do sell something that can help you. People send me free stuff all the time, guys. I'm not going to say they don't. If it's worth it, I talk about it and I promote the hell out of it because I want to see people have the success. And when someone puts something good out there that could help dogs, help people, help trainers, if I could help get a few people going that way, I'm going to do so. I'm going to do so, you know? And so that's my little spiel on corrections, on punishment, on teaching the out, right? I'm going to do a live, not sure when, very soon, on all this stuff with the e-collar. So the last video I said post all your comments there. You could post more comments here also. Go to the last video of this video on Facebook and post all the comments that you want. And I'm going to try to answer each one that I can. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I do have a lot of them. I've done this enough and long enough to where I do have a lot of the answers to completely blow these bullshit myths about the tool from both sides out of the water, okay? But most importantly, I've shown it. I've absolutely shown it. The funny thing is, guys, I've been to so many places with my dogs, you know, especially Luca, Bruno before him, the dog events, working dog events, trials, whatever it is. And, you know, I'm usually one of the only ones there where the dog's not on a leash and he's not on any kind of collar. Nothing. So people will tell you the dog always has to be on an e-collar. That's bullshit. That's not even close. Not even close. You rarely, the only time you see my dogs with an e-collar on is when I'm doing an e-collar video to try to help somebody. That's it. If you teach it this way, you're going to have success. Can you stop unwanted behaviors? Hell yes. Hell yes. I'm a real soft guy with the dogs, right? I don't like to see a dog treated poorly. I have no tolerance for it. I'm not a purely positive trainer. Do I use a lot of corrections and punishment training? No, I use as many as I have to, which usually isn't very much. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to give a dog its best life possible, There has to be consequences for doing good. We call those rewards. There has to be consequences for doing bad. We call that punishment. You can't have a balanced dog without both. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. And I'll challenge them any day to prove me wrong. And I have in the past. Some of the biggest names out there that preach purely positive training, I've personally challenged them. Let's get it on. Let's do this. Never heard anything because they can't. They can't. There's a lot of dogs that they just can't help by giving it a cookie. You know? I use clickers a lot. I teach everything with food. I teach everything with positive reinforcement. But when you neglect negative reinforcement and punishment, it's a negative punishment. It's crazy. It's crazy how much you're hurting the dog. Isn't it about the dogs? If it is, then you have to give the dog everything to succeed. And that's a complete education. Okay? Thank you for watching these long-ass boring videos. For anyone who's made it to the end of that first one, I'm so sorry. Thanks for doing that. But I'm going to keep putting out this information until less and less people are ignorant to what the tool is. On both sides. You balance trainers that are always busting people's balls about using e-collars. Shame on you. You're a big part of the problem too. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Just because you don't have the capabilities to affect people, don't hurt others. Okay? Elevate people. Don't deflate them. Peace.